Hello friends, and welcome to episode 203 of the Noclip Crewcast. We're recording 22 minutes later than originally scheduled because I just completely forgot. I was in a Soul Reaver editing. I was in my very own editing spectral realm.
You were in the soul.
I was harvesting the souls of our many interviewees. One of which I took a flight to LA yesterday to interview for an hour and then drove home, which was quite fun. I think I needed a day of not editing, actually. And I was like, I could wait until the return flight that night at 10 o'clock, or I could cancel that flight and just keep this rental car for 7 hours and drive basically the length of California. And that's what I did. And it was really fucking relaxing because no one can email you when you're driving. It's incredible. But it's totally messed up my whole schedule. So apologies, gentlemen. What were you talking about for 22 minutes while you were waiting for my dumbass to turn up?
Digimon.
Yeah, who wants to give him the low? Who wants to fill it in?
So Digimon World 3 it involves terrorism to some extent.
Oh, okay. This is the
terrorists
old PlayStation
invade the digital
1
world.
Digimon game?
Yes, exactly.
We all know
and we were
love.
trying to figure out which ones they were.
Yeah, let me read the few sentences of synopsis here for Digimon World 2003. The game tells the story of Junior, who begins playing an MMORPG called Digimon Online with his friends. But when terrorists attack, Junior and the other players are trapped within the game and must find a way out using his Digimon partners.
They attack the game or they attack...
Who's to say?
It doesn't specify. I like to think that they're using, like, imagine if some sort of terrorist cell took over the World of Warcraft, made Orgrimmar their base of operations.
Yeah, okay.
For, I don't know how they then leverage that into doing any sort of real damage in the
They
real
would be
world,
Horde, though. That's a good point. I feel like the Alliance is a real...
in Baron's chat.
Yeah, exactly. Alliance is way more... That's the libs. That's that neoliberal wet dream is what...
Yeah, that's true. They're like, everything is fine, and, all we need to do is defeat the terrorists, and everything will stay the same and
exactly.
be fine.
And no one cares about the working man in the Elwyn Forest and all the... the terrible terrorism that's happening at home with Van Cleef. No one cares about that. No one cares about Hogger coming over here taking our... I don't know. It is funny how, like, it wedged in between 9/11 and World of Warcraft. That's all anyone was talking about, I guess, was MMO and terrorism together at last.
They're hot issues, yeah.
Yeah, those are the two big issues. It is funny to think of, like, Digimon is, ostensibly a children's video game, and they're like,
Shut up, man.
like a evil monster or something. What's the biggest monster? Probably terrorism.
Terrorism is the ultimate monster. Exactly. Yeah. Maybe it was terrorism, but it was like Americans dropping bombs. You know what I mean?
There we go.
Probably was.
Did they teach that? I don't know.
That's the ending of the game. They show the opposite side, and you're like, whoa, dude, twist ending.
Wait,
we're the bad
the
guys?
Real terrorist.
One man's terrorist is another's freedom fighter. What?
Oh, shit. Marvel fucking
Dude,
writing
Digimon
right there.
is getting so deep.
Yeah.
Holy shit.
All right, podcast coming 2025 from your friends at Noclip. But we're not here to talk about... Unfortunately, we are not here to talk about Digimon. We're here to talk about some video games we played. In fact, this is the final time we will be talking about contemporary video games that we played, unless big asterisk in the corner, unless that Indiana Jones game gets into the Game of the Year conversation. That'll be the only time the Venn diagrams converge. Because, of course, we'll be entering Game of the Year season next week, which is December. I'm getting this right, aren't I, Jesse? Yeah, he's doing
so.
Shaka, so that must mean...
Yeah, it's exciting.
I'm on the right path.
Yeah, bro.
5 podcasts this time. So the next 5 weeks are going to be Game of the Year focused. We have, of course, our Game of the Year, our first episode, which is all about basically getting our top 10 games of the year from the 4 of us. What cumulatively are 10 games that we feel good about are the best games. And in the spirit of celebrating those games and not just having them fight each other like so many Digimon, we will be... instead of sort of saying, no, this game should be second, this game should be first, we will be giving each of them, this is now we're the Lib podcast. We're giving everyone participation trophies.
Don't quote him on that.
we will, we're basically going to be celebrating each of those games and giving them their own sort of why we think this game is really cool. Why it is in our top 10, and we split that up into 3 separate podcasts so we can give each game enough airtime, basically. So usually there's like 3/4 games in one of those. We will have 3 of those podcasts, and then at the end of all of that, we have been inviting the community to submit their own games of the year. They can do so over at patreon.com/noclip. There is actually a tiny URL version of this. I will look on my Twitter now. In the spirit of not being prepared for this podcast, I will continue in that ilk. And basically, as long as you're a member of Noclip, you do not need to be a paid patron. You can be a free member of Noclip as well. You will get access to that post, and basically just go on there, write in the comments what game you think is your favorite game of the year. And if you see other games that you saw other people write down that are cool, just like those comments, and we'll basically be pooling those together for a big grab bag. These are the games that we think the community really liked, and we'll source 10 of those out of those. The link is tinyurl.com/noclipgoty24. Noclip GOTY 24. I'll make it the pinned tweet on the Noclip account as well, so people can check that out over on the Twitter. Can you do post? You can pin on posts on Blue Sky, right? Yeah. Okay. We'll do the same over there as well, and it'll be in the description for this podcast. I'm sure Jesse will oblige. tinyurl.com/noclipgoty24. Go over there, and we'll be shutting that off like probably mid-December, something like that.
Yeah,
leave it open for a while.
Do the 20th.
Yeah,
or is that too late? The 20th? Okay, all right.
No one's gonna be going on internet after the 20th. They're too busy waiting for Santa Claus.
I hate going on internet. It's my least favorite thing.
I know. It used to be great.
Yeah.
Back when you could play.
Back when we had websites.
Before the terrorists ruined all the MMOs. But we're gonna talk this week about other games. Final Fantasy, all the hottest games here. Final Fantasy VI, Grunn, which did come out recently. Solitomb, Loco Motive for a little bit. Frank is still in his retro achievements hold, doing that grind, that jet grind, and helping us do our grind are, of course, our incredible battle pass holders: Ian Swanson, Eamon Slattery, Harry Flanagan, Arno, Richard Matherson, James Brown, Mark Rojas, Tucker Morgan, David McGarry, Sven Huster, Pez, Aaron L. White, Uint Nate, Tim Robinson, Forrest Pruitt, Jonathan Kremen, Eric Hamilton Schneider, Cameron Ladd, Zachary Snader, Alex Sharp, Alex Couchet, George Dakotas, Jacob Godseer, and Tohir Tiliev, of course, not to forget our good friend Ryson. How are you feeling, boys?
Good.
Wonderful.
It's the end of the year.
It is.
Blessed. It's feeling very like wintry. It's been rainy here, and I was editing yesterday, doing a bunch of color grading, and it was rainy and dark, and I was like, I felt like when you're at school and it's like the week before a holiday and you're working hard, but you're kind of like, oh, it doesn't matter that I'm working hard because it's like about to be Thanksgiving. That's how I felt yesterday.
That's good. How did Jesse feel about us talking about how a little bit of rain in California feels like winter?
Oh yeah, welcome to the season. I love it. It's jerks. Actually, it hasn't been that bad here for the last couple of years. Close to the end of the year, it doesn't really snow as much anymore. I can't remember the last white Christmas. Cool? Is that the word that we're using for that?
Hey,
horrifying.
That sounds great. How's your summer?
Really hot. Yeah, we get none of the benefits of winter visually and none of the benefits of summer. It's too hot to go outside and not cold enough for it to be pretty. I love the future. It's so good to be here.
Bummer. Frank was talking about you've never gone. Just bummer.
Sucks.
It's all the AI we've been doing. It's using too much energy.
It's warming the planet.
Yeah. Exactly. Maybe we'll touch upon that. I've been enjoying the comments this week, actually, on the podcast about that. I've had some changes of heart due to the due to the some of the feedback on our AI discussion last week. It was actually a point you were making that I was not picking up on, Jesse, which was that the sort of original sin of so much of this AI is the initial building of the mechanisms,
the base of how it works.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't know enough to say whether or not what they used for Microsoft Flight Simulator was the same thing. But basically all learning models that are generative end up somewhere in their database using copyrighted materials. And it's like, does that matter? Is that the ultimate conversation to be having about this stuff? Probably not. Like it's obviously the base level of it, but the bigger things are like the way it impacts workers, the environment, which obviously is terrible. Like there's so many bigger things that need to be dealt with before we even focus on that, I think.
Yeah, it's weird. It's like it's a real can of worms, because I was thinking about it and going like, okay, so I looked into like what some of these models use, and obviously it's basically impossible to know for sure. And I bet they're saying the stuff that is probably the most palatable. One thing, for instance, is apparently customer service calls, because they just need so much of it. So like, where do you get like a bunch of that audio data, and I guess like recorded calls from people complaining about their ISPs and whatnot, or their insurance.
All the AI voices are just very like disgruntled customer voices. Right. They're like, yeah, what the fuck? I don't know. What do you fucking want help with? Like, Siri, change.
Right. Which kind of like, it's like annoying and sucks. But it's kind of like I would get mad at that. Like, am I getting mad at Google for pulling my location data if it helps with all this like live traffic stuff? Like, maybe I did at the start. I don't really know. But like, again, that's probably the version that is the most palatable that gets pushed out there. And then I was thinking about the energy stuff as well, and I was thinking like, how do we feel then about, this is basically the type of whataboutism you do when you're on a 7-hour drive, so apologies in advance. But I was like thinking like, I was like, should we feel bad about like graphics cards then? Like using those, or even like their sourcing, like they use like rare earth minerals that lead to like actual conflicts. Like, should we feel like shitty about that? Should we just feel shitty about everything?
Yes, you should.
That's what I'm.
Yeah.
And then in that malaise, I'm like, but wait. The galaxy brain of this is, if I feel bad about everything, if I decide to feel bad about nothing. And then I was like, oh, that's how you become like a successful business person, is you just morally divorce yourself. You hit the moral eject button and don't care at all. Whereas we're sort of stuck in this miasma of what is the thing we should feel the most frustrated about. But yeah. There was some great comments in the post in the YouTube version last week I was looking at, and I jumped in there to talk to some folks. That sort of opened my eyes up a bit about it. I think in general I just feel like I don't want to throw the baby out with. There's a little bit too much hand-wringing about some of it, I feel, or a little bit too reactive without sort of doing the research. But I also appreciate that my opinion was based on having not done enough research either. So I just feel like we're going to have different we had very different feelings about this 2 years ago when we first brought it up, and I feel like in 2 years' time we'll probably have different reasons too.
Yeah.
Yeah. There are also certain topics that get like immediately hyperpolarized, like you're saying, where it's like, even though I think most generative AI is kind of bullshit and purposeless and whatever, even if it was super refined, I still think it's kind of like a net negative. I don't see people bringing the same smoke for like, a few years time, we have like an iPhone 15, 16, and 17 that are made with rare earth minerals that are like extracted in the most brutal conditions imaginable, and also totally unnecessary for these like marginal technological gains. And yet a lot of people are just like, oh, a new one? Oh, the camera's like,
thinner? Whoa.
Another megapixel? Hell yeah.
Yeah, that's a fair point. Yeah, we live in a society. It's one of those.
Oh, brother.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, yet you participate in capitalism.
Yet you have an iPhone, but you don't like capitalism?
Just
checkmate.
I'm just gonna like cover, get rid of all the technology in this shot here behind me. Apologies can you hear the vacuum cleaning that's happening above my head?
A little bit, but it's not too bad.
That's preparation for Thanksgiving right there. And I am not going to be the one that goes up and says stop cleaning the house while I'm podcasting. So we're just going to...
Amen.
You're sleeping on the couch.
Also, I was going to say the ultimate move is to become the ultimate poster, build like a green like cabin somewhere with solar and like the most, ecologically sustainable way to be an activist still and connected to the internet. And then I was like, oh no, that's just the Unabomber.
Right.
Yeah,
exactly.
Like that's
exactly what it is.
The Unabomber.
I was like, then do you only play indie games, but not ones that use Unity? Like, what's the ethical
Oh, but Unity is very accessible for certain people, like myself.
It is, but they also were doing a bunch of shenanigans, last year.
I know.
I'm hitting the eject button on this. Get me out of here.
Right? Like, how do we? What's the extreme? Oh my God, they're the fucking vacuum cleaners at the door. I can smell the turkey already. Thanksgiving is happening. Let's talk about some video games. I've just realized that this podcast, with me ranting about AI, I have become the weird uncle in the corner at Thanksgiving who you're forced to fucking listen to. So, let's get out of this.
I can fix your iPhone. I'll do it.
Let me see. Bring it over here. Oh shit, I broke it. I'm going to go to Jesse because I think no offense to myself or Frank or Jeremy, but I'm wondering that, look, when someone writes down their game and it's in italics, I'm always worried that, like, okay, there's a reason it's in italics. And also when somebody writes down a game that was released before I was born, maybe, I don't know. So let's go with Jesse's. Solitomb. What is Solitomb? Can I guess? Is it a roguelike?
Well done. You've nailed it. Solitomb. So here's the thing. I have another game on this list, which I'm sure I'll talk about a little bit, called Loco Motive. I was very excited to talk about it. I will not get into it until we get to that point, but Solitomb has completely taken over my life. Between this and the Kendrick Lamar album, I don't know what to do with myself. I'm feasting this week.
Are they dissing Drake and Solitomb as well?
I wish it would be 1% better than it already is, which is pretty good. This game is a problem. This is a problem, folks. Solitomb is free. It's free. It's just a Pico 8 prototype. Solitaire-based roguelike combat sort of game. It's like a Balatro adjacent solitaire focused game.
Okay.
So what you're doing is you have these like 6 rows or 6 columns of cards for solitaire. If you've played it before, you know what that looks like. If you haven't, just go check it out. It's free. There's footage in the video version. If you're listening to the audio version, take 3 hours, because that's how long you're going to need after you start playing it, and just sit down and give it a shot. So basically what you're doing is you have an objective on 4 different floors, and the floors are just solitaire boards. It works almost exactly the same way that Balatro does, that you have a goal that you're trying to meet, and you're doing that using hands. So you have cards in the traditional sense. They're all numbered from like 1 to 10, but you can make the numbers go a little bit higher with different abilities that you unlock.
Okay.
And the numbers that you're collecting into a hand of up to 5 cards, you use to generate your attack and your block. So you have like 2 different stats, you play them down, and then some of the cards aren't exclusively for generating numbers. So like some of the cards on the screen in this Pico 8 style, this like low fidelity, very big chunky pixel art style, all of the cards have different suits that aren't like hearts, diamonds, clubs, and spades. Here it's a sword for your attack, or like shield, or goblin and like demon and undead and stuff, right? So some of those ones you have to clear, and your goal for each of the boards or each of the screens is to escape the tomb that you're in. And to do that, you have to clear 4 of the middle columns. And you can move the cards around like you would in solitaire, right? So if you want to move a stack of 6, 5, and 4, you have to put it on a 6 or higher to make that space. So there's a lot of positional strategy to it, and like where you want your cards to be, but also strategy in the hands that you want to make. Again, like Balatro, the harder it is to make a hand, the more bonuses you get for it. So if you make a straight,
because there's more cards probably too, right?
Well, exactly. Yeah, there's tons of more cards. It's like I think probably like 25 or 30 cards on the board. You have 10 of, so 40 actually, because you have 10 of each of the main suits. Like you have potions that you can use. So if you get a flush, right, if you play 5 of the same card, or 4 or 3, they're a little lenient on it. It's very hard, but they're lenient on the hand sizes. When you play them, you just generate stats, and there's like abilities you can get to give you more opportunities, different things you can do, different abilities. It's one of those games where if you see footage of it or you give it a shot for 5 minutes, you can like very quickly interpret the depth to it, how many options you'd have, and there's so much to it. Honestly, I'm not even joking. I have so much work I have to do this week. I blocked the website on Monday and Tuesday because I started playing it and I was like, no, I can't do this. I had my Jeremy Jane hide Balatro moment. I was like, get this the fuck away from me.
That's the ultimate endorsement. Dude, I have Deadlock and Balatro and Slay the Spire, the 3 games hidden on my Steam library, and I feel like that is the ultimate endorsement, is that I love them so much that I have to
put them away. I have to put them in the box and lock it.
I have to put my toys away.
Yes. So yeah, actually Slay the Spire is a good comparison, because it's not like you're fighting an enemy. You're just clearing the enemy cards from your board so you can make your space and get out of there. but the way that the damage is calculated and the structure of it, you know what damage you're going to take, right? So like if it's a goblin, it has a 6, you know how much damage you have to deal to it and how much damage it's going to do to you. It's 6. It's the number that's on the card.
Right,
so it's super straightforward. You have a limited amount of health, but you can get upgrades that give you more health. Everything is very considered. It's just such a tightly designed game with so many different variables to it that makes for a really, really strong roguelike. And this is just the Pico 8 prototype. The developer, I don't have their name, but
you're playing on itch, is it?
Yeah, on itch.io. You can play it in the browser or you can download it and play it on your desktop.
I'm playing it
I'm
right now.
playing it right now too. It's
Is it not?
Jag
Is it
the
not
name.
the best?
Yeah, we're gonna have to. Can we do this podcast later? I need to.
Yeah, can we all pause for 30 minutes, just play a few Solitombs?
Jacob Wazalewski, I want to say, with music
Apologies.
from Chris Donnelly, which is easier for me to say because that's a very Irish sounding name. Jacob Wazalewski. Yeah, if you type Solitomb into Google, basically the itch link is the first one on it. Yeah, it looks neat. Not since Spider Solitaire have we had such a revolution in the world of Solitaire.
genre
There
has
was
been
actually
spun.
the one game during the Next Fest thing. What was it? There was a Solitaire.
Dungeons
thing.
and Degenerate Gamblers, but that was
that's it.
Blackjack.
Oh, it was Blackjack, was it?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, this looks neat. I'm going to give this a
I have a
whirl.
question. If you clear a run, does it do the thing that Windows Solitaire does where the card goes like...
Every
My
game
dad
should do
used
that.
to, like, called me into the room when that was happening.
Get the camera, Mom.
It's
Mom,
happening!
it's the
The only
camera.
game he ever played in his
Really?
entire... Yeah, it was on his little IBM workstation he had from his insurance job. And he'd go like, come in. And because, like, remember it used to go dit, 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 and it would go down, but it had the Pac-Man problem or Space Invaders problem of the speed of the game was tied to the
yes.
RAM, I think it was. So if you do it on a modern machine, it just goes blah, like it takes 2 seconds. There was no like frame rate cap on it or anything.
Did your dad see you playing Half-Life and go, so is this like better or worse than Solitaire? Like everything was compared to Solitaire for him?
I remember he came up. I used to have like a projector when I was a teenager and I worked in theater. I bought a projector and would rent it out to theater companies. So I basically got a free projector because I just paid for the cost of the projector. So I had a big projector and a screen. I had like a 60-inch like screen in my in the loft of the house I grew up in. And when I was in college, and when Assassin's Creed came out, Dad came up one day and he had been to the Holy Land and like visited a lot of these places. And because my uncle was based out there as a UN peacekeeper in the Lebanon and in West Bank and stuff like that.
Oh, wow, that's awesome.
And my dad's scared of heights, and he came up and I was playing Assassin's Creed on this fucking screen, and he was like, "What is this? Like, what are you? This is the craziest thing ever." But no, he hardly ever played games. I don't think he ever saw Half-Life. Maybe he did. Man, oh man. Jeremy, sorry, you were asking something before I started randomly talking about Assassin's Creed.
No, that was the question. If you win, does it do that?
I haven't beaten it
bounces all
yet.
over.
It's too hard. It's really hard. Like I've probably done 40 runs, I've maybe got to the third thing. Maybe there's like 4 different levels. It gets progressively more challenging, and after the first level, there are elite enemies. So cards that you have to destroy on top of like the way that you open the gate. Don't just clear those 4 columns. You also have to collect gems from killing specific enemies that have the little gem on their card. But then you have to kill these elites, and the elites have different abilities. Some of them will be like you can't play, or not you can't, but if you play a hand that has a pair or 3 of a kind or whatever, then you don't get the bonus for playing that hand or that specific kind of hand. So there's a lot of things to consider in your builds and just different strategies. It's a great little toilet game. If you can get it set up on your Steam Deck, you'll need to consult your doctor.
Can you get it?
I mean, I think if you get the itch downloader on the desktop version, it's a little too fiddly though. If you don't want to do all that, then I don't think that's available yet.
Yeah, it'd be cool if there was like a way to deploy itch games quickly, because
yeah.
If it runs in a browser, I'm sure it'll run on anything. Maybe you can just open the browser and go to itch and do that, and then hit full screen. I don't know.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
We're trying to throw out ideas here for you folks. If you're at Thanksgiving at someone's house that you're really bored and you don't want, and they have a really crappy computer, you can still play this game. So check that one out. Solitomb. Can we quickly talk about Loco Motive as well?
Sure, yeah.
This came out pretty recently, right?
Yeah, it's launched, I think, last week. I picked it up pretty early around launch. Loco Motive is very much a Danny O'Dwyer game. I'm surprised that you're not in on this.
So which genre are we talking? Is it
a LucasArts style adventure game?
Oh, nice. Okay.
Capital L, capital A. I mean, I don't have a ton of experience with LucasArts games, if I'm being honest. I've only played the Grim Fandango the Grim Fandango game. When I'm like
it's not.
48
I wasn't
years
going to
old.
correct you. I'm glad you corrected yourself.
Just Grim Fandango.
You know how hard it is doing the voiceover to not call it The Legacy of Kain Soul Reaver?
Ah, man. See,
No.
but it's so seminal. It feels like there's supposed to be a "the" there. Locomotive is really, really cool. So it's a whodunit adventure style game where you're on a train. You play as Arthur A. Ackerman, and you're investigating. You're just like a lawyer, but you're investigating the murder of this old lady who has a will, and people are trying to get all of her goods from her. It's a classic whodunit. My favorite kinds of stories. What makes this stand out to me is two things. One, well, a lot of stuff, but specifically two things. The animation is some of the best pixel art animation. Oh, I want to say period. I can't think of many other game, maybe Owlboy, that have like better animation than this. Everything is so fluid and there's so much personality in everything. Characters will shove, especially your main character, Arthur, will shove items that they get into their like breast pocket, but like everything moves with all this unnecessary, and you're like shoving like an umbrella into your coat. It like you got a TARDIS coat. You're just putting everything in this impossible pocket. And then the voice acting, the writing is so witty and charming, and the characters have this like great way of delivering every line. Like every single character sounds like this professional top tier voice actor. I was checking the IMDb. I've never heard of any of them. I'm sure they're all very talented in their own field though. Obviously from what I'm hearing, but just really, really well done. I've only played about, I think I'm near the end of the first chapter, which is roughly where the demo goes. But just from what I've seen so far and what I've seen in trailers, I'm very excited to see where it goes. The only thing I can't speak on is the puzzles. Right. So it has that classic adventure game kind of puzzle thing, but it's so far it hasn't been too challenging. A lot of the reviews that I've read that finished the game were not negative, but were pointing out it's like a classic adventure games puzzle. Sometimes you're going to be shoving a thing into another thing and then clicking everything onto that. So far, it's been like, I need a small metal item to put into this drawer to open it. And I'm like, I wonder if I use the small metal item in my inventory. It's not that challenging, but I'm enjoying it a lot. I'm excited to see where it goes.
How does inventory work in this? Are you carrying a bunch of stuff, or do you have like a, how does inventory work, and how do interactions work? Like, it doesn't look like you've got any like, Scum style,
walk to
verbiage or any of that.
Yeah, so it plays, I'm playing on controller, so I'm not entirely sure how it works on mouse and keyboard, but on the Steam Deck, it works fine. The controller interface, basically, there's a bunch of little diamonds that show up on interactables. You can switch between them when you're near them and then select them and interact and listen to all the dialogue. But when you're doing the item interaction, you pull open your coat, not literally, and like you have your little, this is in my suit jacket inventory, and you can select the thing and put it together. Yeah, exactly. So I haven't had to do a really hard foam puzzle yet. All I remember from that game is very early on, you have to like use some foam in a letter chute or something. And I couldn't figure that out for like 2 hours. That game is so hard, but
gotta get the balloon and then break into the office. And
yeah.
Fuck, I need to play Grim Fandango again. But I won't. I'll play Locomotive. It looks interesting. Yeah, you're right. The animation, it does seem very like, it's hard to tell because it's also flatter than like Full Throttle and Monkey Island, where they were like trying to make a bunch of depth. I guess this is more like Monkey Island than Full Throttle. But yeah, or the Indiana Jones games. But yeah, the detail on the animation is definitely way more, sorry, not on the animation, just on the drawing. And the animation, like you said, yeah, I've never seen. That's super fluid. It's like it basically looks like those old games with twice as many frames.
Yes,
it's like very smooth looking, very cool.
Yeah, it's very bouncy,
very
and exaggerated
bouncy.
And stuff. There's the trailer. I feel like I watched 3 seconds of it, and there's a dude like sliding down a staircase and doing like a full 360 turn. Like they didn't have to go this hard on it.
Yeah, it's very. Yeah, you're right. Yeah, it does seem like they sort of put in that extra effort. Very cool. Does it all take place on the train, or does it go other places?
So very early on, it's like in media res. You're arrested and you have to escape the interrogation room. So I imagine there are other locales that the story takes place in.
Excellent. Yeah, this looks neat. Locomotive. 2 great little games I'd never heard of before, and I'm interested in both of them. Thank you, Jesse.
You're welcome.
Solitomb and Loco Motive.
Don't play Solitomb. Like, play it. It's absolutely fantastic, but wait until you're done everything.
I'll wait till I've got a couple of docs to edit here. So I'll play it in 5 years' time when I've stopped getting through our back catalog here. Me and Jeremy have finally bested the editing beast we're working on here. Let me talk about Grunn a little bit. This came up when? Did this come up? This came up in the Next Fest video?
Next Fest, yeah.
So I completed Grunn. There are multiple endings to Grunn. Let me tell you about Grunn without trying to spoil Grunn. So Grunn is a first-person God, it's a first-person gardening game, I guess.
You're a
They're setting
landscaper.
this up as like, wink, wink, it's just a game about gardening. Go in and play it. It's a game where you turn up at the start, you get out of a bus and you end up at this garden, and you're meant to get the gardening done by the end of the weekend for this person or whatever. And it quickly, you start to realize that not everything is as it seems. There is like a character that is sort of spying on you a little bit. There are all these weird little interactions and objects you're picking up and oddities like garden gnomes and, oh, I can access this part of the map. I wonder what's over here. And, oh, I can keep gardening in this area that isn't tied to the house. Like, just like weird little things, I guess, going on. The nature of the game is that it is a run-based game. You can die or you can fail, and it will entirely reset your run and your progress. And the amount of gardening that you've done, which early on was quite annoying to me, that I was spending a lot of time gardening and then going, oh no, I did too much gardening and I don't have enough time to do this thing, and then I mess it up, and then, you know, something happens that basically resets my run and I'm back to the start, and then I'm having to do all this gardening again. There is a little bit of tension between... So I really enjoyed this game. I thought it was great.
Nice.
The little bit of tension I want to talk about first is that there is the nature of the solutions in this world are very esoteric and mystical. So when you do something, sometimes you immediately understand, oh, if I go over and hit this wall or do this thing, this will... you know, help me in some way. It'll make a shortcut or get me an object or do whatever that I know I need to do this with and I need to do that with. Sometimes it's not that clear, because sometimes you have to do things you have to do a weird thing in a spot for some reason, and you don't know, does it always happen at this spot at this time, or is it something that triggered because I did something else that I don't know about? And the game does a pretty great job usually of signaling to you why something happened. But sometimes, just because the things you're doing are so esoteric, sometimes it's just difficult, I think, for the game to really tell you, no, it happened because of this, not because your imagination is running wild, right? So for a while when I was playing it, I was getting frustrated when I would get reset, because I'm like, oh man, I don't know why that happened. Like, I don't know why... Or I tried something, like there's an area in the game where you're doing a lot of cutting, and there are certain things you cut, if you do it, it'll lead to a fail state. And I'm like, oh, come on, man. This is like the third day I was doing this, and then I didn't know I wasn't meant to do that necessarily, and it totally reset my thing. So I ended up in the middle part of playing this game, and I completely went through it in like 2 or 3 days. I absolutely adored it. And there are multiple endings, but basically the multiple endings are different ways you fuck up and die. And then there's the good ending, and then there's a bad ending. I ended up using a guide for a segment in the middle, because I was like, I'm banging my head against this. I'm starting to dislike this game because I don't know the things that I've not done yet, or what I'm supposed to combine with something else. And there are a lot of objects. It's like the opposite of the opposite of Chekhov's gun, where it's like the whole point of Chekhov's gun is if you introduce something, it needs to have a reason. You don't introduce red herrings or whatever. Like, if you produce the gun in the first act, then it needs to be fired at some stage during the movie. And generally, in a lot of adventure games, every object you pick up has some sort of use. There are always exceptions to this, or red herrings. Literally, there is a red herring you get in one of the Monkey Island games. All the money Guybrush has at the start of Monkey Island 2 is one of the funniest ones as well, where your inventory, you open up and you've just got shitloads of money, and you are immediately mugged. You lose all of that money, and then you spend the next part of that first act trying to scrounge together like 16 pieces of ace so you can get out of the next chapter. But in general, that's the case. And because there are all these like alternative endings or weird shortcuts that you can do in Grunn, sometimes you have a lot of objects and you're really not sure what you're meant to do with them. There's like I'm trying to talk around some of this stuff because I don't want people to be spoiled by it.
Yeah,
but like,
just a normal gardening game. I get it. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. Like, you can buy somebody an ice cream in this game, and I believe it is just for an achievement. I never had to do that again. It was not a win condition for my final run through the game. but to do that, you have to like kind of go at a certain time and then find that person and then do all this sort of
So
stuff.
would you say this is the death loop of gardening? Is that?
God, that's a really good comparison. Yeah, it is. It like the world. There's zero combat in this at all. There is threat. It's somewhat horror-ish, but it's not like you're like running away from things. Like if something's going to kill you, it's going to kill you. You can't really get away from it. The art is really cool. Like I don't know how to explain how it looks, but it's very colorful and indie game looking. I don't know how to explain. The flow is really good. Like the controls feel good. The turning is a bit slow if you're trying to be inside of a building, but generally it's tuned really well for you to basically speed run. Like it's kind of a game that by the time you're okay on my last run, I was like, okay, I'm going here. I'm doing this. I'm doing this. I'm not doing that. I'm not using the plank there. I'm doing this. I'm breaking down this wall. I'm getting in here. Yep, I know the guy sees me here. I'll do this. It's kind of like Hello Neighbor or something where you're sort of playing with the mechanics of the world. You're sort of battling the world. The world is the enemy. But yeah, I really loved it. And the resolution's great. The ending, I think the solution to it was fun. It's full of mystery. It's that thing again I talk about. I love exploring worlds. I love a good mystery. And I really enjoyed unraveling it. And I would say using a guide in the middle part of my playthrough when I wasn't quite sure if I was on the right path, I felt like it was it increased my enjoyment of Grunn. And then once I knew what I needed to do, once I knew what I was doing that was relevant and what I was doing that was superfluous and I was wasting my fucking time on, I kind of knew the path then. And I was like, okay, no, I need to do this, and then I'll figure the rest out myself. And I did. So.
Yeah, it's an interesting discussion around that kind of stuff because I know people that, you recommend Outer Wilds to them and they play it. They're like, yeah, I got really stuck and like I didn't know where to go. And it's like, fuck, like it's such a good game that at some point it's fine to just be like, fuck it. This part is going to ruin the game for me and I'm going to bounce off it. Like I should just check a walkthrough and very carefully not read like the table of contents that's like, and here's the ending. And if you kill everyone, here's the genocide ending. And you're like, oh, I didn't know there was a genocide ending. But yeah, I that's kind of the risky run with a game like this, where it's like if everything is shrouded in mystery and the game wants to be the type of game that does not telegraph to you with like a bunch of like icons that are pointing you to the next objective and stuff, the risk it runs is alienating people, because in order to like have a chance at having that feeling of mystery that like the world just exists and you're doing things in it, you also have to run the risk of people being alienated by it and being lost and stuff. Yeah. So it's a double-edged sword.
100%. And that's why I didn't want to dislike the game. I was like, I really like that they are like, that's a way tougher design, than just signposting everything, right? Like, so like, I'm really in awe of the design of the game, and I want to meet that feeling of wonder. So I was like, okay, how do I do this? How do I microdose like just a little bit of help and still feel like I got the essence of it? And I did, and it felt good happening in the middle, because I was like, oh well, I've already like. One of the cool things was reading through the guide and being like, yep, did that, figured that out. And like practically everything up to that point I had figured out. It was just there was a certain point where so much had accumulated that my brain was having trouble. Like somebody smarter than me might be able to just like deal with it, but there were so many variables that I had kind of gotten lost in it a bit. Like there was too much going on. So at least solidifying the stuff I'd done in the past was like, okay, cool. I am doing that right. I don't have to worry about that. And it limited the scope of what I was worrying about. Which I guess in another game you would do maybe by going to a different area or something. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like you would go, oh, okay, now we're here. And then I don't have to worry about all that stuff. But the nature of this game is that you can complete it in like 7 minutes. Like if you know what you're doing, you can go bam, 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 bam. And my last run was, I think the speed run I saw was about 7 minutes or something. My last run was probably 20 or something, or maybe a bit less. It was pretty fast. Yeah, it's really cool.
That's awesome. I didn't know that. I figured, because playing the demo, it's pretty clear that there's stuff that you can do. The demo's, I think, just the base game from what I've seen, or actually I own it. I should probably just play it. But from what I've seen, it's the same thing. Like you start, you do all your yard work, and then you figure things out, and it goes from there. But I think there was a limit on the number of endings you could get. Like you couldn't get the full one, but there were some other optional ones that are probably still in the full game. Okay. I got a couple of the funny or not so funny ones.
Was there anything that killed you like something?
It's a gardening game, Danny. There's no dying in gardening.
I'm wondering. Yeah, I'm interested in how they shortened it. There's one thing that happens after a bit of time that sort of like caps you, like if you don't get stuff done on time. So I wonder if maybe that's how they capped you in the demo. Yeah, it's cool. It's a cool little weird little game with a bunch of weird little guys in it. There's a lot of like you can't understand anyone you talk to, which I also find very funny. You walk up to them and press, and they go and it comes up. You have no idea what they said.
Best kind of games.
Time. Yeah, Grunn, pick it up. It's on a PC. It's about $12, $13. Really enjoyed it. Made by that Sock Pop Collective, man. They are just pumping them out. Unbelievably insane. And also really good on Steam Deck. Played it on Steam Deck pretty much top to bottom. So yeah, had a great time. Cut your hedges and water your plants, folks. That was Grunn, Grunn. Jeremy Jane.
Yes.
Tell me a little bit about you. We talked a bit about, I forget which one it was 8 or 9, the Final Fantasies that did not tickle your cockles. But we're here with Final Fantasy. Oh, you put an X on it.
Whoa, you're talking about Final Fantasy 16, Jeremy? That's awesome.
I did not put. Wow, that's Jesse is doctoring.
Dude, did you like it? I told you it's good.
Wow. A Roman numeral crime. Unbelievable.
How dare you? How dare you skip an entire 10 entries? I mentioned this briefly on the podcast last week, but I played a shit ton over the last week since then of Final Fantasy VI, released in North America when I was a child as Final Fantasy III. Very confusing naming convention. Yes. Final Fantasy V didn't come out in America. I can't remember which other. I think like 1 and 4 did. I don't fucking know. I'm not a historian. I'm just a guy who likes video games. So Final Fantasy VI is this was one of my favorite games as a kid. This is one of those games that I like rented from Blockbuster, and I loved it so much that I like one summer I was like, we need to like renew it. My friends were like, well, maybe like next time. I was like, no, my save is like on this cartridge. We need to renew like this physical cartridge. And I just kept renewing it, but I never completed it as a kid because it's like 30-ish hours probably to complete, and that's a lot for a small child renting a cartridge one summer. And I went back and emulated it when I was like a teenager and also never completed it. So I'm back for redemption. But I wanted to talk about I just read a book about MKUltra recently.
Sure.
And this is this kind of ties back into Digimon and Terrorism a little bit. There is a
more people need to segue back into Digimon Terrorism. We need to.
There's instead of Digimon and Terrorism, we're going to talk about Final Fantasy and the Nazis.
Perfect.
There is a very interesting correlation that I never noticed. This seems like the kind of thing that I've never watched a video essay on Final Fantasy VI. Apologies if there's like a Thor High Heels video that says this exact same thing. But the villains, the Empire in Final Fantasy VI, they're this is very light, sort of like structural spoilers for the beginning of Final Fantasy VI. In this world, magic has been gone for like 1,000 years, and machines have risen up out of this fantasy world. They're sort of early industrial era, sort of like Disco Elysium. Like they're not driving around modern looking cars, but they have machines and mechs and stuff. And there is the rediscovery of magic in this world. And this evil empire captures these magical beings called espers, and they take them to a lab, and they're like trying to extract the magic. They're doing like unethical Dr. Mengele science on them to extract the magic from them. And not only that, but the empire is run by a guy named Gestahl, which sounds like a very German sounding name. They do what appears to be like a weird Nazi salute at some point. Like I guess it's
dude,
like
it's a Roman salute, all right?
Yeah. Listen, that's a Hindu swastika, actually. But I was, you kind of like get the lens you bring into a piece of media or whatever. But having just completed a book on MKUltra, I was startled by the comparisons, and especially because you know how Sid is like he appears in a bunch of Final Fantasy games. He's the dude who's like he's the airship pilot in 7, and he's like the scientist in some of them. He's the Dr. Mengele in Final Fantasy VI. So you go to the lab, and he's like, "What are you doing? Like you're fucking with my experiments." And I was like, "Oh man, they got like Sid is the guy running like whatever Unit 431 or whatever Japan's equivalent of the horrible experiment shit was." But I did think it was interesting because it's kind of like Final Fantasy VII is very much this like analogy for we're ruining the planet, we're extracting the oil, and they're like extracting the Gaian energy, and it's destroying the planet.
Oh, they made Final Fantasy woke. I can't believe it.
Yeah, God damn it. But Final Fantasy VI is like this just post Cold War, like kind of like looking back at the empires of the last half century. And I was just startled by how much it's like, there's like an MKUltra in there. They have like, in MKUltra, a lot of the things that they try to do. In fact, Adam Curtis talks about this in
I'm sure
Thinking
he
Out of
does.
My Head. Yeah, I'm sure he has many
This is
times.
right down his fucking windpipe.
He talks about how this psychologist who was one of the bigger like MKUltra kind of like employees was trying to wipe people's memories to like basically the idea was that if you could wipe people's memories and erase things from them, that you could then reprogram. You
Right.
could fill up the cup with new ideas, either to eliminate all the traumatic stuff and leave them healthy with only healthy ideas
Yeah,
are left.
sure.
After taking a mega dose of LSD, and they're like, "What if we flash all these lights in your face?" He was. I feel like this doctor is the equivalent of the guy who's like, you're hanging out, taking acid with your friends. And he's like, "Does this look weird? What about this?" But anyway, they were also trying to create kind of like sleeper cells by emptying out people's minds and whatever, like reprogramming them. And there is very much like elements of that too. Terra, one of the protagonists, comes in with a mind control crown in the beginning, and is like she has like magical abilities, and they're sort of like mind controlling her and stuff. So I was just like. I don't know. I was startled by all these weird parallels between Final Fantasy VI and fucking the Nazis and MKUltra. And the other thing I wanted to mention is that as anyone who has seen the Indiana Jones movies know, or studied history lightly, that the Nazis also did have a vested interest in the
Or
occult.
played Wolfenstein.
Or played Wolfenstein, which I have not played. So it is interesting that like Kefka, who's sort of one of the main antagonists of Final Fantasy VI, is kind of like he's like the Himmler a little bit, like of the Schutzstaffel, because the Schutzstaffel had it's called the like Anerbe or something. I can't remember the German word for it, but they were a division that their whole purpose was like they were the bad guys in Raiders of the Lost Ark. Is they would just travel the world looking for like ancient evidence of the Aryan people and like relics and stuff. They had a room at their headquarters that was like the Grail room where they'd put the Grail when they found it and stuff. So having this like evil empire who's traveling the world looking for magic to harness it to take over the world, I was like, holy, that's literally the fucking Schutzstaffel.
Yeah, they got high on their own fucking supply. They should have been investing in winter fucking armor,
Tires.
fucking to fight the Russians. And here they are. We're gonna find the mysterious. We're gonna find the Dead Sea Scroll and the Holy Grail and fucking the fucking what's that?
Ark of the
Ark
Covenant.
of the Covenant, all that stuff. The
Danny,
Turin
sorry, not
Shroud.
Danny. Jeremy, you haven't played any of the new Wolfenstein games either, like the machine games ones?
No.
Okay.
Man.
I was going to make a joke about something, but I can't do it. It's a spoiler. It's okay.
Did you play a Return to Castle
man.
Wolfenstein? The old was that Splash Damage? Who did that one? That was great. That was great.
The only ones
Like
I played Wolf
2003.
3D, and I played Enemy Territory.
Okay. Return to Castle Wolfenstein. When did that come out? That was I feel like it was 03. 2001. November 2001. That's a fucking game. It was Grey Matter. That's who it was. Grey Matter. That's formerly Zatrix. Fun, interesting fact. Zatrix, creators of the best first-person shooter ever made, Kingpin Life of Crime. Guess the spoilers. I've really started with the punchline, but bless you, Jesse. He's about to sneeze. He's got
It didn't happen. You blessed me too early. You saved me.
Take back. Blessed retracted. Blessed retracted. Now I can't bless again for an extra 25 seconds. All
right.
Like a paladin. I gotta.
It's cool down.
It's got a cool down on it. Victor Antonov, the art director for Half-Life 2, who we interviewed in the Secret Tape Half-Life documentary. First game I ever worked on, Kingpin Life of Crime with Zatrix.
Oh shit, that's crazy.
This should have gone in the doc, but I could not for the fucking life of me find a place that was in it. The reason why he was hired at Valve, one of the reasons, is because Kingpin Life of Crime takes place in a city. And most first-person shooters do not take place in, like, contemporary cities, but Kingpin's kind of did. Kind of a weird city. And, of course, he had, like, studied in, like, an art institute with to do with, like, that type of design, like train stations and things like that. And, yeah, he would worked as an artist at Zatrix on Kingpin. So, Kingpin Life of Crime has a lot to fucking answer for, you know? Maybe the sequel to the best other best first-person shooter.
Wait a second. How did we get here? What were we talking about? Final Fantasy VI?
See, that's the beauty.
But then we started talking about Wolf.
Right.
Gray
okay.
matter were the
Right,
Yeah, I just took us off on
Nazis are really the Rosetta Stone. Of
They really
everything
are.
in
goes back.
history,
Yeah,
I'd say.
yeah. What?
Not even just video games, just like most of modern history.
they just got involved in too much, and we
Yeah.
can't get the stink off. That's the problem. Is that they just
True, they left the stains all over the
really
carpet.
did. Should have spent more
Christ.
time working on make some more coats, guys. No, I need to find the fucking ancient aliens in the bottom of the pyramids.
Yeah, but if we find the staff that shoots lightning bolts
Exactly.
that melted that guy's face, then we'll win the war.
Jeremy, I only know one way that you would have enjoyed playing Final Fantasy VI even more, and that is if you had retro achievements turned on.
That's so true.
Did you
dude.
have retro achievements turned on?
No, I was thinking about that last week when Frank brought it up. I was too afraid to like. I've gone this far without knowing the end of finding Final Fantasy
Okay.
VI, so I feel like
Right.
I would be afraid when I was downloading them. It would be like, make sure you like do this at the end, and I'd be like, oh, fuck.
So Jeremy didn't use retro achievements. Titantron goes off. Here comes Frank. He's running into the ring. He's running in. Frank, tell us about your latest retro achievements journey.
Man, so I got the Dreamcast. So I found a good Dreamcast emulator called Flycast, and that has retro achievements. And so, I booted up Jet Set Radio or Jet Grind Radio. I always call it Jet Set Radio. It was Jet Set Radio, I think, in Japan, and Grind Radio out here.
Oh, is that what I always wondered? It was called Jet Set Radio in Europe too. Yeah.
Yeah, so in North America, it's Jet Grind Radio, which I don't know. I think they just wanted to put like, no, it's a skate game, grind at Extreme Sports. I think that's probably why, but Jet Set Radio. And I have nothing new to say, but God, Jet Set Radio is one of the best games of all time. Still, like the controls comparatively to like Jet Set Radio Future and even Bomb Rush Cyberpunk, it's like, a little stiff, but yeah, aesthetically everything. But it's so fun just playing the game again, getting achievements. I freaked out because in Jet Set, I've been talking about this since I went to Japan the first time back in March. I've now like gone back to any game that takes place in Tokyo, and sure enough, Jet Set Radio's in Tokyo. They call it Tokyo 2, like Tokyo To, which I learned To means and in Japanese. So Tokyo To. But they straight up have like there's Shibuya, there's Shinjuku. There is a level that is the same neighborhood that Yakuza takes place in, Kabukicho. That is in Jet Set Radio. So the Yakuza Red Gate is in Jet Set Radio. Forever, I've been calling it the Yakuza Gate, but technically, Jet Set Radio is in 1999. So it's no longer the Yakuza Gate, it's the Jet Set Radio Gate. I don't know. But that same Red Gate is in Yakuza, it's in Jet Set Radio, it's in Kabukicho. So like I saw that and was like, oh my God, like now it's like seeing the Matrix Code. It's very fun. It's very, very fun playing that game now and just recognizing like, oh, this is based on this neighborhood and this neighborhood. And same thing, it has the map and everything. But tying it back to retro achievements, I realized like, I never mastered Jet Set Radio. Like I played it as a kid on Dreamcast. I don't even think I beat it back then because I probably sucked at it. Played it again when they had like the port on like 360 and PS3 a decade ago. But now with retro achievements, it's like, oh, there's an achievement for like hitting jet rank on every level, which is like, that might be impossible. I might get pissed off before I do it. But like, I don't know. I seriously implore everyone, like go on. I love retro achievements because now when you go, like I have my profile set up, but it shows like your top completed games. And right now it's still the bouncer at the top, and that pisses me off. I don't like. I need to like.
Wow.
I need to beat Tony Hawk more and I need to like get the better games over the bouncer. So I did a 100% run of Tony Hawk 3 as a custom skater. I played a PS2 game called Under the Skin, which is a It's
the Scarlett Johansson movie.
There is a movie called Under the Skin, but there is a 2004 Capcom game called Under the Skin that is 10,000% such an underrated, forgotten gem. This Under the Skin is like a combination of Katamari Damacy meets Jet Set Radio. The premise is you're an alien that comes to Earth, and your job is to prank people. And you do this. The game is insane. It has a very cartoonish Jet Set art style. You're a little blue alien. You transform and you zap a human. It's almost like it's like the Japanese version of Destroy All Humans.
Yeah.
You just cause chaos in like 10 minutes. But there's also Raccoon City, and there's you can play as Jill Valentine in the game.
What?
It's insane. Yeah. Yeah. So this was made by like Capcom's like Freak team, the team that did like Beautiful Joe and like and all, like Capcom was just making all these weird, crazy games like Okami. Like,
wow, is
so
this the sixth game? Is this the Capcom? It could have been
Kind
the Capcom
of,
6.
yeah. Basically, it was released for PS2, but it was like of that era where they're just making weird experimental games. But yeah, you're just a little alien running around town, like doing pranks on people. I don't know. It's just insane. But like, these are games I'm just discovering and replaying because of retro achievements, and like, it's infinite. Like, I'm sure I'll keep playing modern games where I'm in the background playing all the, like, finishing up Astrobot and all these other games that we'll talk about next week. But it's just been so fun just playing random games and just thinking of stuff I never tried out with retro achievements.
Man.
And like, I don't know, I have nothing to report on, but just, oh my God, retro achievements are so fun. So there's so many games out there.
Under the Skin. That's
Yeah,
bizarre. I've never
it's
seen
good.
this before.
It's very good.
Yeah, that is kind of the problem with this week's podcast, is that we're all basically playing Game of the Year stuff so we can be prepared for next week, and we're all holding off on talking about it. But hey, man, I finally figured out why people call it Jet Grind Radio over here. That never put two and two together. I was like, oh, is there a second one of those? I guess there was a second one of those I never played, but no, same one.
Yeah.
All right, let's jump into the emails. What we got this week, Frank?
Yeah, so we have emails. If people want to write us, send us an email to podcast@noclip.video or in our Patreon Discord server. We have 2 messages this week. One is from Ollie Cant, written in the Discord. They said, since we're entering the winter months again, I have to ask, how do you feel about snow levels in games, and do you have a favorite? I personally enjoy snow areas in games since it seems to unlock the nostalgic childhood joy parts of my brain, and I never quite understood why people disliked them either. I especially enjoy the atmosphere of Phendrana drifts in Metroid Prime 1. Emerging into that space for the first time and hearing the music fade in still stays with me to this day.
Man, I just completed some of the snow levels, and I completed Astro last week.
Oh, yeah.
And there's one level, so I'm going back and I'm trying to 100% it, and there was one level where you were rolling around. There was like an optional area to get into that I figured out. You rolled a ball of snow, and if you kept rolling it, it kept getting bigger. And that was incredible because like the displacement tech in Astro is insane in this one, and it looked really cool with the snow. My go-to is probably that old South Park first-person game.
Snow Fight or
N64.
whatever.
And
Sure.
yeah, because I bet it really helped. I bet like they didn't have to texture basically any of the ground. It just had it all be white. Like it was white on everything. I mean, that game had insanely like Silent Hill style draw distance problems, especially when you're playing 4-player. You had to be right up on top of someone to be able to see them. But yeah, that's it. Cannon Fodder, some good snow ass levels in it as well. Remember The Last of Us 2? All that snow, that stuff was really good. Good snow tech there as well.
I like what's it called? Dunmorrow near Iron
Oh
Ore.
yeah, Dunmar, yeah.
All-time great snow level. I like because I'm playing Final Fantasy VI also, the march in the intro by Narsha, the like mechanical city or whatever. There's the opening scene where it plays the intro of them on like the snowy bluff, and then there's the 3 Magitech mechs marching through the snow, and it plays a fucking Uematsu banger and rolls the credits. It's very, very good.
Dude, Banjo-Kazooie, the snow level in the first game.
Oh yeah.
Holy
shit.
Oh man, I love that whole section.
My wife was my wife played the Frozen Wilds recently. I mean, the Horizon games just have great again, it's like a tech thing.
Temperature.
Yeah, they just look fantastic. And Red Dead 2's intro as well.
I was going to say Red Dead 2's snow is some of the best. Like, it feels cold. There's not a lot of games that have the sound, the environment, like the snow looks crunchy. You go slower through it. Just so much about it. It's just nailed. So good.
Mario 64 penguin level where you can throw the
Classic.
baby penguin to its
I love,
death.
love throwing baby penguins.
Oh my god. Speaking of games make you feel cold, The Long Dark. We did a mini doc on that as well. That's got some pretty tasty stuff. And Skyrim. Shout out to Skyrim.
What were you gonna say, Frank?
No, I was gonna say in the Mario level, also the ice slide, which like is very iconic. But then when it also comes to snow stuff, like there's like snowboarding games, like like SSS, XSS Tricky. But randomly, the one I played the most was Amped 2 on Xbox. Amped 2. The Amped was a weird throwaway snowboarding series on Xbox.
Amped 3 was the crazy one.
I don't think I've played Amp 3, and that means there's Xbox 360 achievements.
Retro achievements, let's go.
Amp 3 is the best Amped game. You should, it's the most Tony Hawk of all of the Amped games. It's like it's actually a bit more SSXy than SSXy. Wow, I didn't need to say it that way. Ooh. But of course, SSX. I have forgotten the best snow game. I can't believe it, and I'm not talking about Frostpunk. Of course, I'm talking about Snow Runner.
Oh yeah,
is it the truck
game, man?
I haven't played
the
that.
Blood Runners prequel.
Yeah, it's basically a game about just, you know what's fucking difficult? Driving heavy cars in the snow. we're gonna make a game
is
out
true.
of it. And
That
then
is very
7
true.
billion people bought that game. It's like completely just invented a fucking subgenre. They were like,
That's cool.
Yeah.
Frank, I got a retro achievements game recommendation
Yes.
for you that's snowy. Have you played Snowboard Kids?
Oh man.
Oh yeah.
That's
my-
that's technically an Atlas kit. That's an Atlas game, or they published it.
Oh, is
Yeah.
it? I haven't played it in so long. I totally forgot. I love Snowboard
That'd be a
Kids.
very good one.
And Snowboard Kids 2 is great,
Snowboard
too.
Kids 2 and Snowboard Kids 1 are my wife's favorite games from her childhood. I got it for Christmas maybe 6 or 7 years ago. Kind of expensive to get a copy
Really?
of Snowboard Kids 2. I'll be
Yep.
honest. Yeah, and N64, and it is an Atlas game as well. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's dope. We played it. I'd never played it before, but played it with her. Snowboard Kids 2.
Oh, man.
It's so fun. That's one of my favorites. That'd be I wonder the retro achievements for that are probably
Oh,
Yeah,
Yeah.
there's a
hard.
lot. There's a lot that's like come in first place, and then there's a lot that's come in first place on expert of like every map and
Yeah, as Tommy or
Yeah.
as some specific person. Yeah.
outrace the dinosaur. I guess there's a level where you have to outrace the
That's,
dinosaur.
that's Tomb Raider, I think, Frank.
No, but there's Tomb Raider has ice levels. Yeah.
Diddy Kong Racing has a
Snow,
race
Frank.
against the dinosaur,
Yeah.
and it has
So it's
snow
actually
levels.
the best snow level is what you're saying, because it's in
Yeah.
Diddy Kong
Yeah, yeah.
Racing.
That's
Mundawn,
true. The
scary
all-timer.
game, scary horror indie game. It's like snowy,
Oh,
but
yeah.
it's brown. It's like sepia tone.
I forgot about
You're
that.
right. There's a lot of horror. You're right. Japanese horror games in the snow. I am now also seeing. Fuck, what was that game called? We put up a trailer for it on the archive. I forget. Whatever. But yeah,
Fear Effect?
Blood. Blood looks good on snow. You know what I mean? Oh, you know
yeah,
what game I played
true.
recently? Not recently, but they did that remaster and people didn't like it. Or some people didn't like it because they graded it differently. And they were like, do you know how color grading works? And I'm like, yeah, I'm sure the people who made the fucking video game know how color grading works. But it was Until Dawn.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, which
Looked better when it was blue.
Yeah, looked better when it was like yeah. They were like, that was one of those times. Okay, Uncle, back in the fucking sofa.
He's
Uncle
Twitter
Grouchy
posting.
Uncle.
He's Twitter posting.
Let him
Back
have
in
it,
the
Unc.
sofa.
Yeah.
Starting Noclip to sort of like create some sort of degree of empathy between developers and people who play games. I think my favorite. I don't mind if people have like opinions on games and stuff. Of course, like you can critique things, you can have ideas about things. It's the smart ass who thinks they know more than the developer and is like really hamming it up that irritates me. Like there was people going like, oh, you know that like color grading is more than just like, it's like somebody who just figured out about white balance last week and now it's all the fucking thing they talk about. You know what I mean? Like, if you use warm tones, it does this, and like fucking 2 week film student shit. And saying like, when they remade Until Dawn that they like, you can disagree with it, sure, that they made this like change to it, but this idea that like it was some fucking monkey smacking a keyboard that didn't understand how like fucking color science works is like just so I hate that. I just hate when people assume that developers are stupid, like, and it's not because of budget or a fucking artistic decision that they weren't in the room for or any number of reasons. Why I had to do it. Sorry, get off the couch now. You can go eat some turkey.
No, you got a good point.
sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can agree, or rather, you can disagree with like the creative decisions they made, but to imply that all of those decisions were made out of like ignorance is pretty ridiculous.
Yeah. And maybe some of them are, but like, to assume it is just like super disrespectful, I feel like, to like the amount of work that developers have to do to get this stuff out, especially a remaster. You think that studios do you think any studio that's doing a fucking remaster is getting like the time and money that they need to do it? That must be the most frustrating thing to have to work, and the amount of stakeholders involved and all that stuff, Anyway, we'll see how that Soul River one comes out. That'll be out next week, I think, by the time this one comes out. And so will our doc, hopefully. Working away on it here. Frank, we've got another email here.
Yeah, we have another email from Kieran Lister. They wrote, "Hi, Noclip. It's been my opinion that music and sound doesn't get enough attention in video games conversation. The medium is usually described as visual, and it seems graphics and art direction take up the bulk of discussion. All my favorite games are ones that have memorable scores, sound design, and are motifs that enrich the experience. I'm thinking of the Halo chanting, the Oblivion exploration music. Zelda's themes are obvious examples, but it also extends to things like the chest opening sound in Ocarina or the endlessly reassuring sound of the Health Station in Half-Life. What are some of your favorite sounds or scores in video games, and how important do you think sound is to when playing?"
It's huge, right? I think Jeremy could probably speak to this as well. When you're making a video game, before you add sound and after you add sound, it's like two different video games. Whether that's music, sound effects for different things, it feels like it's done when there's sound effects in it. So without it, it's like it's weird. It doesn't feel right, at least to me.
Yeah, even placeholder noises, like even just having an enemy that takes damage and there's some indicator, and you just like record your mic in Audacity going like, oh, and then randomize the pitch a little bit and add that. It's like makes a huge difference. Games that have great sound. I mean, Final Fantasy VI, obviously, it's the 5th time I've brought it up this podcast, but one of the most legendary soundtracks of all time. To the extent that I was saying before this podcast to Frank that like hearing it in the game now is bizarre because I've listened to it probably more now outside of the game as just music. Chrono Trigger, one of the all-time great soundtracks, like video game music that you could show to someone who's like a classical music composer student and be like, this is just like classical music, and they'd be like, yeah, that's great.
Yep.
Yeah, the music stuff is super subjective. It's like asking somebody what's their favorite artist, right? It's like I have soundtracks that I love that I'm sure other people weren't, or songs and soundtracks. My wife was playing through Horizon recently, and I asked her to like not skip a cutscene because I was like, oh, I know they play a really good song that I really enjoy in this one. And yeah, sound is weird because like I think sound by its very nature is not necessarily trying to call that much attention to itself. Like it serves an artistic purpose, but it also serves like a
haptic feedback.
Yeah, exactly. It's supposed to sort of bring you into the world. I forget who some audio person explained it to me recently where they were saying, it might have been Kelly Bailey on the Half-Life stuff, where it was like when the sounds idea is to basically suck you into the world, like to like breach the sort of barrier between the screen and you, because ultimately you're looking at this thing that is like, it's 3D, most games are, but they're like, there's a very clear point at which your focal sort of is that, your focal point is or where your eyes are, and it's different to where your head is. Whereas with sound, because it's like coming out of a lot of the time speakers and headphones and stuff like that, it is more spatial. It is more like all around you. And so it has this added effect of basically sort of sucking you in a little bit, you know what I mean? Like bringing you a little bit closer to the screen. And I think Half-Life 2 is like the emailer here, Kieran mentioned the fucking HEV or whatever, all that type of stuff. Like what I love about Half-Life 2 sound is that like it sounds like fucking nothing else. Like all those things. Like I mean, the guns sound really good because of all the tech, and they did all that spatial audio stuff. And there's a part that we also cut from the doc where Kelly was talking about how they did bullet sounds, because like they didn't have spatial audio for like bullets, so they would have, when people were really far away, because now they can make big levels, when they took a shot and it was a bullet sound, a bullet doesn't sound like a bullet when it's fired that far away. It sounds completely different. But then the whistle of how the bullet goes past you, they have to do all this math to basically figure out which audio file to play and at which pitch to make it sound that way. So it's this like balance of, it's clearly like the thing that can pull you out, you know what I mean? Like bad lighting, or there's lots of things that can pull you out of the immersion of a game. So much, it has so much like responsibility, audio does, but also and I think because it has that responsibility, a lot of the time we don't get really novel, interesting sound that we recognize. Like a lot of sound is sort of approached by a lot of studios, because there's so much sound now in modern games, it has to be approached with sort of more, rigidly, production wise. We should do this because we have 15 guns to make work in this area, this type of thing. So like, let's just approach it this way.
Yeah, sound is a lot like UI in that way, where like it's like the more unintrusive form of UI, where like UI is telling you things about the game world by putting them on the screen, but sound is able to do that in a level that's almost like telepathic, where like you're playing PUBG and you hear a shot and it has a certain, like there's a certain bassiness to it or lack of bassiness. There's like directional distance, and like you can tell it's like, someone's fighting like 300 meters that way, and that's a crazy thing to be able to just like insert that thought into a player's mind by playing a certain audio file.
Totally. Yeah. Go on.
Another good sound is in Deadlock, which I've been playing a lot with my friends recently. In MOBAs, they have like last hits where you get the last hit on an enemy and you get the gold for it or whatever. In Deadlock, when you kill a creep, a little orb floats up with like a semi-randomized path, and if you shoot the orb, that's the last hit, and that's how you deny creeps that enemies have killed. And when you hit the orb, it pops and it makes this like pop fizzle that's almost like it's like bubble wrap. Like it's so fucking satisfying. And Killing Creeps is kind of, in my mind, like sort of the drudgery of MOBAs, right? But by infusing it with this sort of like haptic, like it's like opening a can of Sprite or something. You're like, ooh,
Quake.
I don't know. It's
Quake
nice.
3 has a really good thing where there's like a duh noise. It's kind of like similar in other games. I feel like Call of Duty maybe does it as well now, where there's like a whenever you hit somebody.
Yep.
You know what I mean?
Yeah,
there's like a recognition
the
of
little
it.
hit marker.
Yeah, it's like a noise that you're sort of your pay and spray hit somebody. And I think the reason why it was in Quake 3 originally, this is me sort of reverse engineering the design a bit, so this may not be the case, is because a lot of the time in Quake 3 you are not seeing the person when you're hitting them. You're doing a lot of like firing rockets and hoping someone's going to be there, and you're moving in a different direction, and hearing that noise, like you wouldn't do that otherwise. You'd have no idea if you would ever hit somebody unless you were like basically with the railgun or with the machine gun or something like that. So it was a way of like indicating, oh no, I hit that person even though like I was not in a position to see them and I don't know who it was, or maybe I didn't even know if anyone was going to be there, and I took a shot and I hit someone. Oh, there's someone there, I'm going to go back. So like audio does also have that effect on gameplay. You know, it can really change the motivations of a player. Something as simple as just like dip. And what I love is if you use the machine gun in Quake 3, it's like you can hear it like a lot, and it feels very satisfying, which is good for that weapon because it takes off so little damage, but it feels like you're hitting them a lot, so it kind of keeps you in the fight.
The other type of sound that we haven't even touched upon is like ambient noise. Just being in an environment has to feel like something. Like if you've ever, it's a cliche, but if you've ever turned the sound off when watching a horror movie, it's like, this is stupid. Like they're like, why are they afraid of that guy in the Halloween mask? So I feel like when you're in an environment, like, you're walking in the woods in a video game and there's like the crunch of sticks underneath, or kind of like the air has like a sound, it's not silent in a video game.
Or like Red Dead Redemption 2, like the music or the sound is muffled because of the snow, like being in huge big snowfield. It doesn't bounce off anything. So there's no like echo in the distance. It all just hits the snow and you feel that. That's what makes it feel cold. Is if you've been in the snow, you know what it's supposed to sound like, and it sounds right.
Yeah.
Yeah, ambiance is like psychological texture.
Dude, play Stalker 2. It's just, well, I mean, maybe wait a week or so. I don't know when they're patching the next version. But like, yeah, it's Stalker 2 is just entirely like, there is snapping twigs and this music is haunting and everything is terrifying and it's all just fucking sound. Like it's wind and shit like that. Storms in that game are completely insane. Yeah, it's good stuff. I had a recent conversation for an upcoming Secret Tape project that we can't necessarily talk about yet, but one of the person I interviewed was basically, I think it was the guy who made the guns sound good in the early Battlefield games. It was the guy. And everyone was like, oh, you should talk to that guy. That's the guy who did it. And I interviewed him. And it came up in our chats. It was a little bit outside of the scope of what I was there to do, but it was somewhat relevant, I'll say. And it was fascinating because just like Kelly Bailey at Valve, this guy had never worked as a sound engineer before. He was a musician. He hadn't done any sound engineering, but he was a sniper. So he knew how fucking guns sounded. Because in Sweden, I think they have the same thing where you do like a year of either military service or social service or whatever it is. And he worked as a sniper. And he was like, when we were in the army in training, he was like, I go off and fire guns. And he's like, or we'd either fire guns in training or when I was firing, he was like, it's a violent noise. He was like, it doesn't feel good. When you fire guns, it sounds like it rattles your brain. You can't think properly. You feel it in your chest. It's like a violent act that happens if you're firing or if someone else is firing. And so it wasn't like he came in with some like grand idea of how to change. He was like, no, that's how fucking guns sound. So like, that's what I'm going to make the guns sound like. And he went off with, he didn't know anything about audio design. He went off with a bunch of microphones. He didn't know anything about audio design, but he knew how to fire a load of different types of guns. So he went off with like some audio recording equipment, basically tweaked them so that he could do it, recorded all of these, in like close proximity guns, and then put them in. This is like this is like Battlefield's, like Bad Company and Battlefield 2 and like all that stuff where it sounded like insane. And it was like, of course, like when you think about it, you're like, of course, like, yes. But to him, that was the only way to do it, because he was like, well, I know how guns sound like, and they want guns in this gun video game, and I got hired to do it, and I don't really know anything about it, so I guess I'll just record the guns the way I know guns experience. And I just found that to be absolutely fascinating. And it's like, the problem, I guess, with like a lot of the older gaming gets is that we sort of create established practices of how things should sound, and then maybe it becomes a bit boring or less interesting, and we don't think about it. And sometimes you need that outsider who comes in with like a completely different way of thinking about things to go, oh no, this is how I guns sound like this to me. They sound bad. Like they sound like a thing you don't want to fire because it's going to rattle your chest and hurt your brain and make a lot of noise and kill somebody, you know?
That's really interesting. I feel like the media that I've seen that captures the best is like I feel like there was like Band of Brothers or like Saving Private Ryan.
Both of those.
I feel like that era of like World War II movies, like the MG42 fires up and it's just like like it's just rips
the
through the air.
grand ting, like the
yes,
the bullet coming out of the
classic.
thing. Yeah.
But I remember as a kid, I used to go to upstate New York twice a year because that's where my dad grew up and his family was still out there. And we went shooting with my uncle one time, and there was like an old Remington bolt action 22 that we shot, and just for like target practice. And then my uncle was like, "Oh, you want to shoot like a real gun?" And he brought his shotgun, and it was like traumatic to shoot. Like it's like not fun. I mean, like shooting guns is fun. It's like whatever, you know. It's trying. It's like a skill game. Like it's like a carnival game. It feels like that. But then you fire a shotgun and you're like, oh, this is like, I feel like I'm like driving a car into a wall. Like this doesn't feel like something you're supposed to do.
Yeah, one of my favorite. I don't see these online as much as I used to. I think it was a certain era, but like videos of people at shooting ranges firing the shotgun at the end of the are just like yeah, because you just think like, oh, in movies, when Arnold Schwarzenegger, that was the whole thing apparently. Was it Arnold? I think it was Arnold in Terminator didn't want recoil, because he wanted Terminator to feel like this impossibly strong thing. And it is, I might be misremembering this, but I think that's what it was. And then that sort of established the look of shotguns in lots of movies from then on, was that you were strong, right? The action hero could take the recoil. So then people thought that that's like, I assume that's like a pistol in a movie where you're like bang, 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 right? It's not like, you know, Dirty Harry where it flies back. It's like, oh, pistols. And largely you can kind of shoot pistols that fast with not crazy recoil, depending on obviously the barrel size. But yeah, shotguns, you know, watching videos of guys with like these really long shotguns with double barrels, and they fucking fall on the floor. Like it just looks awful. So yeah, that's it's funny, isn't it? How like some games guns feel completely, you know, just blasé, and then Battlefield came along and was just like, no guys, this shit's real. Like it's pretty cool. That's pretty cool stuff. Great question, Kieran. Thanks for that. And Ollie as well. And thank you to everyone for listening to our podcast for another year. This is the sort of last regularly scheduled one. I mean, they will still be going up at the same time on a Friday early in the morning here at Pacific time at least. What time do you put them up, Jesse? Is it midnight?
Midnight on the Friday East or Pacific, yeah.
So breakfast time in the UK and Ireland and the rest of Europe. So yeah, we'll have next week will be our first. Next week is sort of the big one, the top 10, where we'll pick our top 10 games, and then after that, it also gives all of us an opportunity to spend some time with those top 10 games, maybe the ones we haven't played that much as well, so we can all come back and talk about them. So after that, we'll divvy them up and we'll decide which one's which. And yeah, in the meantime, head over to tinyurl.com/noclip GOTY24 if you want to submit your one for the community top 10. Yeah, I'm excited to do that.
Yeah,
you guys got any games you haven't played yet? Any games you got queued up for the Thanksgiving break?
Oh man, 1,000 Times Resist. I'm going to finish and see if that ends up on the GOTY list. I feel like I need to play that all the way through to the end. I was so excited for it, and then it kept attacking me and stabbing me in the heart with like the most gut-wrenching lines of dialogue. So I was like, I'll put this away for a year.
Gut-wrenching, emotional, or gut-wrenching bad?
Emotional, like just the kind of six word sentence that just makes you go, oh, okay, right, I should go like hug my mom.
Oh,
baby shoes for sale. Never.
Oh no, that honestly, yeah, kind of on that level. Yeah, actually, yeah, that's a really good one. Oh.
Yeah, 1000x resist is it okay? Is it 1000 times resist? Is it 1000 cross resist, or is it 1000?
I have heard two different people say 1000 times. I'm going to say 1000 times.
Oh, okay.
1000 because you're resisting 1000. Okay, that makes sense. 1000 times resist. That feels very unnatural to say, but I'll be playing it this weekend. I need to play more Metaphor, and Lorelei and the Laser Eyes definitely Still Wakes the Deep. And those are probably the big four.
This week I've been playing a lot of UFO 50 and Infinite Wealth. They were the two I thought I could probably contribute a little bit on. UFO 50, I'll be honest. Yeah, no, I won't talk about it yet. I'm running into a little of this weird guy grew up playing Amiga games, not these types of games problem. So I don't think it resonates necessarily as much with me. But there's a couple in there I've really enjoyed. And yeah, my wife was like, I was playing Infinite Wealth, and she was like, "You playing this for fun or for work?" And I was like, definitely.
I don't know.
My wife did that with Slayer's X Terminal Aftermath, Vengeance of the Slayer. She was like, "Why the fuck are you playing this? Are you getting paid?" And I was like, "Yeah." She was like, "Okay, good."
Amazing. Yeah, it's that time of year a little bit.
Yeah.
I need to play more Another's Crab Treasure, and I need to play more no, I'm wrong. Lies of P, did that come out last year or this year?
That was last year.
That was last
year.
year.
I don't need to play more Lies of P then, I guess.
I mean, you could. It's a good game.
I do need to play more Lies of P.
Yeah.
I didn't play enough for last year.
Honestly, it's funny. I'm excited to be done with Game of the Year so I can play other games.
You could also like next month or in January, just be like, all right, let's do a game club episode, and then we all have to play Lies of P.
Let's do it.
I want to play that game more. Yeah.
You just gave me another reason to play Lies of P again.
Yeah,
so,
you know.
Yeah, I guess that's a good
France.
thing. Yeah, so lots of games to play, and we'll give you the list next week, and then jump on into them. Those.
Can I give you a UFO 50 in pointer how to approach it as someone who has fucking played 100+ hours of it? I would say that the people I know who have had the best experience and connected the most with UFO 50, when they find those few games that connect with them, which are different for everyone, go super fucking deep on those. And like don't worry about coming into GOTY having played a little bit of all 50 games. I would say find the ones that connect with you and play them until they like really, really click with you. Because the experience for me with a lot of these games is even the ones I've bounced off, once I finally gave them enough time to kind of like Rock on Island did not click with me at all until I gave it a few hours, and then I was like, oh, this is one of the fucking best games in this collection for sure.
So it's all the golf ones then. That's where I'm going. That's those are the ones.
You're a Golfaria fan?
Golf. What's the
Pin Golf?
Pin Golf? Which is that?
Pin Golf is the one that's the side-scrolly one.
Yeah, that's
with the cyborgs.
That one I'm fucking way into.
I love that game.
one. And then the other one's it's like an RPG golf game.
Yeah, like a Legend of Zelda golf game.
Yeah. What's that called?
Golfaria, I think, right?
Yeah, okay, that's that one. Yeah. Those are the two for completely different reasons. I just have a problem with golf games. Oh shit. When did fucking
Hot Shots Golf? It came out 2 years ago.
No, the one that I was playing on VR this whole time. Walkabout.
Yeah, Walkabout. Yeah, there you go.
I don't think that came out this year. No, it came out in 2020.
Damn.
that might be my game of the year. For
disqualifies
it. Does a little bit. 4 years is a little bit too much. So yeah, I won't get on there. Patreon show went up last weekend. Go check it out. Our Soul Reaver documentary is nearing completion. I am working as hard as I can to basically get that one out. And yeah, we have a bunch of other stuff coming in December too. So keep your eyes peeled for all that. Patreon.com/Noclip. I also think there might be some sort of patronage sale going on during Thanksgiving, Black Friday weekend, that whole shenanigans. I haven't put it in yet, but I think there's very likely one going on. So if you don't follow me on Twitter or follow Noclip on Twitter or Blue Sky or anything, head over to patreon.com/Noclip. If you have been considering becoming a patron, what this often does is allows people to sort of get to the next tier that maybe they hadn't thought of, or maybe chip in. You can also do things like annual. So there's a very good chance that the deal will be on an annual tier as well. So it's just easy for you to just go, okay, I'll chip in this much and get all this stuff. But yeah, like Patreon shows up every month for everyone. We have early access documentaries for people. We've extended cuts of interviews, all the way up to having your name in the credits. Although we have that capped at 25, and I think we're full at the moment. We might open up a few more slots for that. We just don't want to have the start of the podcast be a procession. We want to make it feel special for folks. And the other thing to say is the Hades doc. I think I said in this podcast last month that we were aiming to get it out on Black Friday. The folks at Supergiant, we weren't able to make it happen, but we're very, very near to getting it done. It looks like it's going to be early next year, and also we should be working something out for patrons to get some early ones. And I also think we have a few hundred ones that we got for ourselves that we're going to do some signed versions as well. But we will definitely be keeping that for patrons. So we'll keep that. We'll be talking about that privately on the Patreon from now on. I'm just mentioning it now in case anyone is interested at all.
What do you think that would go for on eBay? Like $80, $90 with the O'Dwyer
this is why
signature?
we need blockchain.
Don't give Jesse one.
You know, I need to have a stake.
I want my
sale.
Dogecoin backed copy of the documentary.
Right? Yeah, and it'll have all the errors that the first run of this Blu-ray probably has in it. You know, we'll have to wait and see. I've watched it 20 million times. Jeremy's watched it a bunch of times too.
That's so
It's
painful.
very
dude.
hard to do.
I feel bad for you. I like that's
And I'm
too
sure
much.
there's still errors, but it's fine. I'm sure it's fine. Be the original version, unpatched version, day one edition of the Hades Developing Hell series. All right, that's it. Hope you had a great Thanksgiving. If you're in the States, hope you had a good Thursday. If you're anywhere else in the world, take care. We're back for Game of the Year next week. Until then, see you around. Play some Indiana Jones. Bye.